Evos are coming back to Forza.
What is going on today, guys? Tomcat here, and do I have one hell of a topic for you guys today, because that is right, Evos have been spotted in Forza Horizon 4. Now, they were recently spotted on the developer live stream in what the developer stated was a dev build of the game, and so there were things that they say are not ready for, I think they said not ready for public consumption yet, and basically, we saw drivatars driving around in Evos in a race. And so I can only imagine that maybe, and they did also say that they weren't ready for public consumption yet. So that can only mean that there's a very high possibility of Mitsubishi coming back and Evos coming back, because why would they be in a dev build if they weren't coming back? Now, I was able to get a look at some of the gameplay. I wasn't able to get all of it, because by the time I actually was like, oh wait, holy crap, those are Evos, and I really need to actually cover this. By that time, they had already passed a bunch of the cars in the field, but I did get the chance to really get a good look at some of them at least, and I was really freaking excited, and I was really blown away by it, because just like everybody else, thought that Mitsubishi was never coming back and that they were gone just like Toyota. Now, should this give us hope for Toyota? I don't know. I don't think so. I'm not saying anything about Toyota yet. I don't have any evidence towards any suggestion that Toyota may be back yet. So that could very well be something that we have in the future. But who knows when like the licensing changes and stuff like that. But that is a massive, massive thing to see, and it was just something that they very, very, kind of touched on in a super relaxed way, and they were just like, oh yeah, by the way, these are here, kind of just like, whatever, don't worry about it. They were like, yeah, it's just a dev build of the game, don't worry about it. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. We're talking about Evos here, because there was like an Evo 9, an Evo 10. There may have even been an Evo 8, but I'm not sure. It may have been another 9. I'm not like super well versed on like picking out every single detail of every single Evo, so that is something that I am not completely sure of down to the detail. Like, if you put an Evo 8 and an Evo 9 like side by side and I got to look at them, I would be able to tell which one was which. But if they both like flew by like one after the other, I wouldn't exactly be sure. Now, an Evo 8 or a 9 versus a 10, yeah, you could pick that out any day of the week. But the differences between the 8 and the 9, at least visually from like a good distance or when they blow by at speed, they're not quite as prevalent. Now, this is something that I completely and totally did not expect to see come out of this live stream when I was watching it, and I was like, holy crap. Everybody that didn't see that live stream has to know about these, because this is huge. Now, something else that's definitely worth talking about is the fact that they showed some of the new Car Pass cars that are coming in the update next week. Now, this is not for the Fortune Island update, which comes out tomorrow. Well, not really even update, but this is not for when Fortune Island drops. This is for the following week. But these are basically some new Car Pass cars that are really interesting and really cool. And if you were really looking forward to getting your hands on these as Car Pass cars, now you'll be able to. Now, the first cars I want to look at are the ZR1, the ZL1 1LE, the DS3 Racing, and the GTC4 Lusso. Those are all very, very interesting cars, and I think the one that I am most excited about is the ZR1. I mean, playing around with the ZR1 is going to be a blast. I mean, that thing, so cool. That thing is always, honestly, that car, the C7 ZR1, to me, is one of my favorite Corvettes they've ever built. Now, I think the best one is the C7 Grand Sport, because if you're looking for, like, pretty much the most balanced car bargain, like the fastest car for that price range, like the fastest lap records for the price, like the Grand Sport, the C7 Grand Sport is the car to buy. Like, if we're talking about like real life and realistic terms, that is the car to buy. If you want the best lap times per dollar, that is the best car to buy, no questions asked, end of story. Now, and of course, we're talking about in terms of new cars, not talking about like, oh, well, I could buy an MX-5 for like, I could buy an MX-5 for $3,000 and then put this engine swap in it and all this aero, and then I could be faster for less, blah, 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 blah. We're talking about new cars. And the C7 Grand Sport still maintains the fact that it is, in my opinion, the best value new car per lap times. So anyways, moving on to some other cars that are very, very interesting is Ken Block's RS200 Evolution, which is not only a very, very interesting car that has some really cool history to it, but it's also got a really interesting design. I like the way it's sorted out, and the Hudson Hornet is just cool, man. I mean, it's one of those cars that just has heritage in truckloads, absolute truckloads of heritage. No matter who you are, no matter what kind of racing you like, you can't not acknowledge the history and the heritage of the Hudson Hornet. I mean, that thing is just so insane. Now, I wanted to touch on something very, very specific about this whole Mitsubishi thing. Now, we're not 100% sure if these are confirmed to be coming because, again, you got to keep in mind that the build that they were playing on the stream is a dev build, and what that means is there could be things in it that maybe for example, were put in before Mitsubishi backed out, maybe, and then they just ended up being in there anyway, so who knows if that might be the case. I'm not exactly sure. There's a lot of, right now, in terms of in my opinion, there's a lot of, like, weird little loose ends and loose little things here and there that I definitely think would be nice to clean up and actually really see what's what with all that stuff. But if for some reason they do come back, I think a massive part of the community will be pleased, a massive part of the community will be excited, and a massive part of the community will love them, and they'll really be interested in them. Now, although talking about Mitsubishi as a company, they seem to want to forget their roots. I mean, like, the new Eclipse is a crossover. It's not even close to what the old, like, the old, and when I say the old Eclipse, I mean like the old Eclipse. I mean like back when it was a DSM. Because back when an Eclipse was a DSM, I'm not talking about the Eclipse that you couldn't tell whether or not it was coming or going. Like, that thing was just, like, wacky and weird and kind of ugly in my opinion. I mean, like, that doesn't need to be in a racing game. But we're talking about back when, the Eclipse shared its platform with the Talon and was really at the head of that four-cylinder turbo tuner car community. It was pretty much it was the car that kind of led the image for what the Evo is today. And if the Evos come back, I feel like there's a possible chance that we could get maybe, even like an old Eclipse back as well. That would be very, very cool, and I think that would make even more people happy. But I think at the same time, you have to think about it from Mitsubishi's standpoint, because they're not really, like, people say, like, you hear a lot of people say on the internet, like, oh, why would these companies not want the cars in the game? Well, what good does it do Mitsubishi? Like, this is like coming from, say for example, maybe a car company standpoint. If they don't make any of those cars anymore, then in their mind, maybe what good does it do them if the only Mitsubishis you want are the old ones that you can't buy from Mitsubishi? Now, the other argument to that is that, oh, well, these are the cars that people want, so if you make cars like this again, we'll buy them. Now, that's a double-edged sword, because, car companies have to follow markets. I mean, they are a company that their whole objective is to sell cars. And I think that what maybe the enthusiast market doesn't always take into account is that things like the crossover market are massive. They really are, and they account for such a huge part of today's car sales that the crossover segment has grown so much in the past few years. It's insane. Now, I am not for a second advocating that you go out and buy a crossover. I don't like crossovers. They're just kind of dumb to me. But what I am saying is I can see why a company like Mitsubishi that doesn't make any cars like this anymore wouldn't want the cars that they've basically stopped making being promoted in a popular video game. So I can see both sides to the story, and it's definitely something that I'm very curious to see how it plays out here in the coming months as we lead into the new year. And who knows, they might be back. I want to hear your opinions in the comments below on what you think is going to happen here. Whether you think they're left over from, maybe developing the game and then they didn't make it in and then they ended up getting, shown on a dev build by accident, or if you think they're there as kind of like a cheeky announcement and maybe there's a chance that they're coming later on in the future. So those are all of the things that, those are, I think, all the different angles that I could think of with how this whole, like, Evos being shown in the game thing is basically going to go. And I think that it's very interesting to point out because it's like, okay, there's a lot of different angles that this could be right now, like that this could involve. And it's very important that we don't jump on it and be like, oh my god, Evos are confirmed to be coming back, because while they're there, I don't know if that technically means they're actually quote-unquote confirmed. So, if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you leave your opinions down in the comment section below on what you think is going to happen with Mitsubishi after seeing this new information. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe for more. I post videos every single day, everything from Forza-related news to car builds to gameplay to Let's Plays and more, as well as other games. So, again, hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time. Talk to you all later.